Can you see it?
Yes, indeedy.
Perfect.
Okay, so we want to welcome everybody. We'll go to the next slide. We are going to be, this is our first, we'll call it first session for OPP detachment boards, and we're talking a little bit about the coming activities and what you need to really know by April 1st. So here's a bit of a format of how we're going to approach things, and Lisa's going to give us a bit of an overview, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for discussions. I want to let everybody know that these discussion groups will be happening weekly, and there is a full schedule when you register for the discussion. You're welcome to participate as many times as you like. Anytime that you don't participate, however, we are going to post the recording on the website in the members portal, as well as any questions and answers that came out of these sessions. So next slide, Lisa. Just quickly, a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you that are comfortable using the technology, we encourage you to use the chat feature to put your questions in, so we have a little bit of prep time and I can manage things after Lisa's done. For anybody who needs to know where the chat feature is, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a menu that pops up, and all the way over to the right-hand side, you'll see a More button. If you press that More button, you can hit an option called chat, and it'll keep you informed into what we're talking about, and you can post your questions there. Let me see if the other things, you will have a chance, however, to ask questions directly. I will unmute your microphones as soon as Lisa's done the information that she needs to share with us. And then just to allow for ease in traffic, if you will, no pun intended, you can raise your hand and then I'll call you to unmute. Or if it's seeming like we've got a little bit of dead space, feel free to just unmute your microphone and ask your questions away. Other than that, we will get started here. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Janine. So this is going to be very informal. I did talk to some of you today at the Zone 3 meeting, but we are not going to be taking up a lot of time on these sessions with information. It's for you to ask your questions, but I did just want to go over a few key things, and some of this will have been heard by some of you today. Again, we know that April 1st is the in-force date for the CSPA. The mandatory roles and responsibility training for OPP detachment boards looks like it's going to be coming out after April 1st. We did get notice today, and it actually did go out today for the municipal boards. For those of you that were at that meeting and had heard that we were waiting for it, it did go out to everyone today. So we expect yours to be coming out as of April 1st. It should be less than 2 hours for you to complete it. It is very simple process of reading one of the modules, answering 8 to 10 questions, reading the next module, answering 8 to 10 questions. So it's not too onerous to complete. I will say this, and I've mentioned this before, the quality of that training is not exactly where we expected it to be. We wanted it to have more scenario-based kind of processes for you to work through, so that you kind of had a good understanding of how the legislation could be operationalized. But we are working with the ministry on how to improve that training long term after April 1st happens. And again, the thematic training that originally you would have had information that it was going to be available or had to be completed by September 30th. There has been a delay on that as well. So right now, basically the rule will be this, that once that training is made available for board members to complete, you'll have 6 months to complete it at that time. There was a bit of confusion over this. So recently, this is just for those whose members of your boards received provincial appointees received renewals for 6 months. This was sent out by the ministry in the event there was a delay in the enforce date. It is not expected. As we said, it's going to happen on April 1st. It was to extend Section 10 boards under the PSA. It is not extending provincial appointees into the detachment board under the CSPA. So regardless of that 6-month extension, it will cease to be effective on April 1st of 2024. Or if the enforce date was delayed, then it would have been after that. Individuals on Section 10 boards can assist with the transition, but they have no legislative authority after April 1st. So you would be acting more as an advisory group. So you could consider this a subcommittee of your detachment board, like a transition committee, to help with the transfer of files and processes and things like that to assist in setting up your board. This is a local decision if you choose to do this. It is not a requirement, but something you could certainly do if you wanted to take advantage of some of the expertise or knowledge you have on your current Section 10 boards. So just a real quick, what you should have in place or for April 1st. So these are your must-dos. So again, Section 10 boards will no longer exist after April 1st from a legislative standpoint. I'm sure everyone has heard, and anyone who's at the summit heard, this is a journey that starts on April 1st. No one is expecting you to have everything ready anytime soon, quite honestly. We're going to be dealing with the first step of the journey tonight, and we're going to break it down step by step as we move forward. So we're moving together at the same pace. We'll have some that will be way ahead and other boards that are really just getting started now. So we want to kind of make sure we're hitting those members that are just starting to put their board together. So as long as you're working towards getting your full board or at minimum quorum, you're on the right track right now. So the first thing you would want to make sure you're doing is appointing your members to your detachment board. You're going to have your municipal appointments, your community appointments, and you may need a process for this. Some of you have equal municipal and community appointments where your municipality is selecting the community appointments. Others have fewer community appointments than they have municipalities involved or as members of their covered by their detachment board. So if you need a process for that, we do have an example of a job advertisement that was provided by one of the members who may be on the call tonight, in fact, and a list of competencies available. And we have shared that. So we're going to post that as well on the members portal of the website under resources. And I'll see if we can post it with this too, because we're mentioning it. So it'll be in two places if you want to have a look at that and see if it's something you'd like to use for advertising for those positions. And we're expecting your provincial appointees to be happening sometime after April 1st. This is just the oath of office, the oath swearing in, new oath for all boards. So this is what will have to be, make sure this is done for everybody. And you can probably do this at your first meeting. That would be fine. And then just what to focus on next. So you complete the roles and responsibilities training. As we said, it's probably going to be available for you as of April 1st. You need to set the date for your first meeting. And we're kind of recommending to everyone that don't rush to set your first meeting. If you don't need to do it early, give yourself time to get all the pieces in place before your first meeting date. Work on your terms of reference document. So we do have an example document available to use for reference that we will also share. That also came from Lanark. It's a really good document that just gives you a brief overview of the scope of that document and all the pieces you should include. And that is something you should be working on. It's the one piece that your municipalities actually have an important role in discussing how some of those pieces will be managed over time between the board and the municipality. And then you move on to your own bylaws and policies for your board. And one thing that has come up is insurance for your detachment board. So under the CSPA, the definition of detachment board no longer applies or qualifies to be a local board as defined under the Municipal Act, like a former Section 10 board did. So we're curious, and I'm going to ask this question, and I'm hoping I'll get some discussion about this when we're done here, but who has looked into insurance for their board? I understand there'll be a few people on the phone on the call tonight that I know already have. Some have stated that they have been unable to get it firmed up quite yet because their detachment board is not an entity. But I just want everyone to be clear when you're requesting coverage for insurance coverage for your board, that you're clear that your detachment board is not liable for the actions or conduct of OPP, uniform or civilian members. All of that falls with the commissioner, with the OPP as the employer's responsibility. You would be asking for indemnification for your boards in relation to any potential lawsuits or anything related to specifically to board conduct or actions or local policies of the detachment board only. So the risk is minimal in relation to this, but it is still there. So you do need to have insurance. So what we're asking is if when you try to do this, probably after April 1st, you are looking for insurance for your detachment board, that you please advise us if you have any problems and provide us with the written reason from the company who's refusing insurance, if that does happen. We're hoping that, we know in one case that this has happened already, but we're hoping it's just a communication piece where that insurance company believed they were insuring provincial responsibilities of provincial police officers. So we're just going to clarify some of that and move forward from there. So we don't really want to, send off alarm bells yet, because it might just be a communication piece, but that is something we really want to be paying close attention to. So if you do this, please try to work on it very soon and advise us of any issues you might have in this situation with regards to insurance. And then I don't know if you want to do this, Janine, just talk about where they can find all this
Sure,
information.
I'd be happy to. So we've made a few announcements recently. For folks on this call, it would be the announcement of these discussion groups. Anything that has to do with what we are offering by way of discussion groups, training, etc., can all be found on the public side of our website under events. There you will always see registration directions on how to get involved and how to register for any of the events that we offer. Next slide, Lisa. After we're done our discussions, though, or any of the training, for those of you that are members on the call, you can go to the members portal, which is circled up there in the right-hand corner. Once you log in to that members portal, and it will prompt you for your login ID, you will then go to the pull-down menu for member information. Under education and training, you'll see conference and seminar presentations. That's where copies of recordings and our PowerPoint presentations, etc., can be found. Underneath of that, you'll see resources and event library. Temporarily, that's also where we're going to house a lot of the documents that we are talking about, specifically the things that Lisa referenced in her PowerPoint today, as well as the things that we continue to work on. You'll find them there. We haven't quite figured out how we're going to organize that information just yet, but it will be there, and we will make it as intuitive as possible. Next slide. Just a reminder again, anything that we're posting on the website, we are trying to also make sure is posted on the app. So if you haven't signed up for the app, and those of you that are technically savvy and love to work from your phones, we really encourage you to do that. It is on both the Apple and Android store. And new for this month is a LinkedIn page where we're also sharing information. So we're really trying to ensure that there are multiple ways that board members and participants can get the information that they need, and not run into some of the challenges they face with remembering logons, etc. So feel free to be in touch with us at any time. Next slide, Lisa. Again, we're available to help you in any way that we can. Feel free to contact us anytime, generically at training@oappsb, or you can contact Pam or I with respect to this project on the CSPA transition and ongoing training. If we can't answer your question, we will certainly put you in touch with somebody who can. That's all we have for the slide presentation. So Lisa, if you want to stop sharing your screen now, we can get right to the meat and potatoes of what we're all here for. There aren't any questions currently posted in the chat. So if folks have questions they'd like to ask, feel free to put up your hand and unmute your microphone.
I just wanted to share as well, I don't know if I mentioned, I may have, that we're hoping to have all the Q&As from these sessions up the Tuesday after the session. So the goal will be to get any questions that we aren't able to answer, answers for them for the following Tuesday, but we'll also follow up on the next event on the next Thursday, any other questions that were outstanding that we were able to find answers to, okay?
And just a reminder also on the events that are coming up, aside from the discussion groups and the enforced date of April 1st and the upcoming training for other municipal boards, we do want to mention in June our annual AGM and spring conference. It's going to be held at Blue Mountain this year, June 3rd to 5. And again, you can find any information on that on the website. So I've allowed you all now to unmute your microphones. Feel free to ask your questions. Go ahead, George.
Good evening, everyone. My name is George Santos. I'm from Norfolk County. The one question I'd like to ask is, here in Norfolk County, we've had two provincial appointees, and council has decided to have one provincial appointee. And I understand three councilors and one community representative. So my question as a provincial appointee is, I haven't heard anything yet from the Ministry of Solicitor General, nor has my other counterpart. So there's a meeting scheduled for next week. I've looked at the agenda, and the chair of the board has no idea what's coming as of April the 1st. And I can tell you that after April the 1st, if we have no idea, and we might have some clear understanding by reading section 67 and going to conferences, but this is a whole new ball and gamut for myself. And I've been on the board for 4.5 years as a provincial appointee. When you reference board of directors liability, I mean, I understand as a provincial appointee that the province has myself covered, but so now going forward, it's the police services board that has to have their own board of directors liability. Is that correct?
So I think that's a twofold question. So one, George, you want to know about your status, and two, then let's talk about your indemnification, whether it's through the province or the board. So Lisa, do you want to answer that question?
Thank you. Yes. So for the status piece, George, if you want to send me your contact information or send it to oapsb@oapsb.ca, then what we'll do is I'll reach out to Danny Strong, who's doing the appointments. So there was something that went out to the boards. I don't know how long ago that was, guys. Was that like maybe a month ago? Just
Yeah, 6
advising
weeks or so.
6 weeks or so, just asking anyone who was interested, that was currently a provincial appointee, who was interested in being considered as a provincial appointee on their detachment board, to send an email to an address. I don't know if that is posted on our website or not. So what we'll try to do is, if you can just email us, we will get that link for you, or that email for you to send an email in saying that you are currently a provincial appointee with the Norfolk Police Services Board, and you are interested in being considered for the one provincial seat available to the Norfolk Detachment Board. And then at least they'll know it. They know you're there already, but we were advised if you wanted to give an extra, a little push just to say you are still interested, that you could email that address. Okay.
So if I may, that is, do I address it to you there at the Ontario Association of Police Services
Yeah, you
boards?
can just, you know what, there's on the screen right now, there is a training at oapsb.ca. You can send it to that address, and we'll make sure that it gets queued to where it's supposed to go.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
You're welcome. All right. I notice a few other folks have unmuted themselves. So it looks like Mario's iPad, John Davidson, and Lauren, you've all unmuted yourself. Do you have questions?
Pam, do you want to talk to the indemnification piece for George, or do you want me to? Or
well, I was just going to say we missed the second half of George's question,
So
which was related to the indemnification. So yes, George. Originally, the province covers the provincial appointees, and so now that we have OPP detachment boards as separate entities, under Section 10s, they were covered. They were local boards, which there was the coverage, the indemnification for the members that sat on the boards through the municipality's insurance, right? And now you have boards that have multiple municipalities all sitting at one board, which then kind of the confusion is all coming in, is how do you get indemnity insurance for the board members that are from 4 different municipalities, the local appointees, or, that are also coming from multiple municipalities. So we are saying that as an OPP detachment board, you should be contacting as a board, right? As when it comes into effect April 1st, to look to an insurance company saying we are now an OPP detachment board and our board members are coming from municipalities, and we would like indemnification for the board members, right? And so looking for that insurance. Now, the one item that we do need to get clarification on is the provincial appointees still covered by the province? And if so, then as they look for insurance, then they just know that it's only the municipal appointees that should be covered under the insurance plan. barring the answer from the province, right? So that's kind of what our recommendation is at this point. But from what you heard from Lisa, Northumberland, there is a OPP detachment board out there that they said, we can't give you an answer until you're actually a legal entity, which doesn't happen until April 1st. Right. So a lot of these will come up as you're having the conversations, and once April 1st, which is actually not very far away, what we're a week and a bit away
Yeah.
from the date where we'll be able to kind of get to that point. And if you're not having a board meeting until, you know, either in the May or the beginning of at the end of April, a lot of these would have been fleshed out by that point in time, hopefully, in that you have it, or you don't have a meeting until you do have insurance in place, and we kind of work through that. So just to hopefully that clarifies it a little bit for you.
It does. Thank you.
Good.
So sorry for rushing ahead there. All right, in the queue with their microphones unmuted. Mario's iPad. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Lauren Boyko, I'm Haldeman County Police Services Board, I'm the chair. With regards to the cost of the insurance, who now is expected to pick up that cost? I believe the municipality kind of had a rider in which the Police Services Board members, perhaps notwithstanding the provincial reps, were covered, but who now will be picking up that cost? It's not a county board any longer.
No.
Correct.
So do you want that, Lisa?
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I can.
I was actually going to say it as a part of
Yeah.
my last stuff. So as you know, OPP detachment boards shall have a budget, right? It's under the Act, under Section 70. It says that they shall have a budget. This is a cost that you would need to put into your budget, that as when you go to how it's going to be split out between the municipalities that sit on the board, that's how, when that budget or those costs would be spread out against the municipalities. So under the regulations, it does say that the cost would be split out evenly between all the municipalities that sit at that OPP detachment board. Now, you may come up with another formula once you kind of get into those negotiations with the, you know, with your CAOs or with the municipalities finance guys. But realistically, it will be part of your board budget, and that that cost will then be split out between the municipalities. So if you have an administrator, or, you know, even your provincial appointee, dollar remuneration, which needs to happen, will also be a cost, even though that might be split out. But you have to take a look at those costs, any internet costs, but this would be one of those costs that you put into your budget.
Okay, with regards to that and the splitting out of the cost, that's similarly would be for the remuneration of the Police Services Board members.
Correct.
The new structure that we're going to have now is going to include our friends from Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and you know, speak personally, I welcome them with open arms. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and it's only fair. They're currently covered by the OPP, and you know, they should have a board that it has an oversight role. However, their population, and I could be wrong on this, I did a little bit of research because I have a meeting with one representative of theirs tomorrow, actually, and I think their population is about 1/6 of the population of the current board. So is it then being suggested that all the expenses be split between the two, I'll say municipalities, the First Nations and the county? That doesn't seem fair to me.
So that's very nice of you that it doesn't seem fair, because
Well,
so here's how the regulation is currently written, and we're still waiting to get it back since we put some recommendations forward, was that if there is an agreement that is unanimous among the parties of that detachment board, you can split the costs however you want, as long as it's unanimous. If you have someone within your group that doesn't agree, then they will be split equally. So, so for instance, if you decided at Haldeman with Mississauga, who is it? Mississauga?
Mississaugas of the Credit First
Okay,
Nations.
Mississaugas of the Credit. So if you decide that you want to take, 80% of the costs or whatever that might be, based on their,
Population.
how much population or activity they're actually dealing with police, then you can actually do that locally and make that decision locally.
Okay, but
And
it
when it
has to,
comes, and on another point, when it comes to those costs and how they're being paid for, even like remuneration of the members from the Mississauga of the Credits, or um, what's the other one? Remuneration or their portion of the board costs. We've put a request in for that to be clarified in regulation, that it's actually the ministry that's supposed to pick up that cost. So we're just asking for them to document that in regulation as well. So their portion would go to the ministry to fund.
so the ministry is to pick up the remuneration from the, in this case, the Mississaugas of Credit?
Yes. Yeah. So if they have one member on your board or however many members it's going to be, then their remuneration, whatever your board decides. So right now, there's no requirement under the legislation for them to be remunerated at all. The only members that are required are the provincial appointees. There has to be an agreement among all parties of how you're going to remunerate your provincial appointees. But again, that regulation hasn't been finalized. But we are recommending as a best practice that all members, at least your community appointments, your First Nation appointments, and your provincial appointments, be remunerated similarly as just
Okay.
a fair and equitable thing to do.
Okay, so that question is still outstanding then, is it?
That question is still outstanding. So the regulation was posted on the regulation registry. It did not include that, even though we have had a verbal confirmation that that's how that piece will be handled. It wasn't documented, so we sent it back asking for that to be documented.
Okay, okay. And the other question I have, well, I've got a couple of questions. I don't want, if there's somebody else, just I can come back to some of mine after.
Right now, it doesn't look like anybody else has their
Okay.
hand up. So if you want to go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, I will.
John.
The Community Safety and Policing Act, the Code of Conduct.
Mhm.
Has that been finalized, or are they just continuing with the Code of Conduct that they had as of 2019?
Has that been? I think that's been finalized, hasn't it,
It's-
Pam? That's the one that
so-
was put out.
Yes, it's
The code of-
regulation 409. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 40923. Ontario Regulation 40923 is the code
Okay.
of conduct for OPP detachment boards.
It came out on December 18th, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, December 18th. I just wanted to make sure, because I noticed when I was going through this, it said caution that this was as of this date on 2019, and I thought there may be another one. Now, and is that the code of conduct that the new boards will be, they won't be
Yes.
having their own specific, it'll be the general code of conduct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Lauren,
Okay.
I've just thrown it up here. So on the Ontario regulatory, if you look at the CSPA, there's actually all the regulations for this act that have been posted. I went a little too quickly there. We have a document coming that also has a summary of these regulations and a link to the regulations that we will also post on the website.
Okay, good. I'll
Okay.
look for that. And one other question with regards to board members. The current board members are in place, the provincial ones are in place until the province puts a replacement in there. Okay, well, there's a term. It's all over the map is what I can figure out. But they can't go any longer than the term of the sitting members of council.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, correct.
But
Now,
sorry, is that the provincial? So which appointees? Sorry.
that the provincial appointees, the community appointees, in which I'm a community appointee right now, it's the same thing. I'm in place for the term of council and or until my replacement is named. Okay.
Under the new act, yeah.
Right, under the new act and so on. Now, and I think I see a name of a person that I'm going to be meeting with tomorrow. Julie Johnston. And I don't know if it's the same Julie Johnston or not, but anyway, my understanding is that the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, that their council term is a 2-year term as opposed to the county council term, which is a 4-year term. What happens there? As far as the term of members of the new board.
That's a good question, Lauren. Let me check into that. I mean, I would suspect that at the new council, they would appoint, it could be her, it could be whoever they appoint, they'll appoint them again. Or it could be, they would appoint someone new every 2 years, but that would be something probably to decide locally.
One member is elected.
Right. So that
So-
elected person would absolutely, if they weren't reelected at the 2-year term,
Right.
they would be replaced with the new person.
Okay. All right. That's all I have right now. I'm sure I'll think of something as the evening progresses.
Okay.
Okay, John Davidson, it looked like you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, John Davison, Hamilton Township Police Services Board. I'm getting back to the insurance and I'm kind of lost. I'm going in circles here. Some of our members are council members,
Mhm.
and we thought we were covered by our municipalities. Is that correct or incorrect?
Under the new act,
Yes,
not, they are no, so under the CSPA, the detachment board is not defined as a local board under the municipal act. So they would not be covered under the municipalities insurance. So that's why that's the piece that's the piece we're waiting for, right? Is to see if there's challenges, and if that is the reason for the challenge with insurance, then we need to know that as soon as possible so we can push that up to the ministry so they're aware.
okay, thank you. The
Okay.
second comment I gotta make, I received my letter today by way of email. Now, I found this by way of junk mail. It didn't actually, it kicked it down in junk mail instead of in my ordinary mailbox. It's from the ministry, and it gives me the specific dates I have to sign as a board chair. And as the acting chair of the new police services board, I have to sign up all the members with their email addresses to sign up for the roles and responsibilities training. Then at the bottom end of it, it basically says that I shall receive the thematic training. It's new, and I have to have it activated by September 30th, 2024.
Ignore
So,
that piece.
you don't
Ignore
need-
that. Ignore that piece.
Okay.
When did you get that? Do you know when you got that?
Just today,
Just today?
yes.
I'm surprised that got sent to you. Wasn't that just for municipal boards?
That's what we were told, but
Does it say, John, does that say detachment boards on the, anywhere, or is it municipal? They might have sent it to you in error. So let me just, maybe forward it to me if you could, just so I can have a look at it and make sure
Yes.
that it should have gone to you. If it's,
There's OPP, detachments, First
Oh.
Nation boards, etc.
okay, so that's good. They've
starting.
yeah, I only knew of municipal boards going out today, so that's good. So yeah, don't worry about the piece about the thematic training just yet, because I've been advised that they are postponing it, and they will give 6 months to complete it after it's in place.
Okay, so my information then on this documentation that I have here for the roles and responsibilities, we will get emails separately from the Ontario Police College. You have to complete this within a 3-hour time period.
Well,
You have,
and
yeah,
you get an individual login is what's going to happen, because they will be tracking it that way as opposed to a whole board login. So
and you don't have to do it in 3 hours. It'll probably take you less than 2, John, to be honest. But if you have
Yeah.
to walk away in the middle of it, you can go back in and finish it. It doesn't,
yeah, it's not
you
going
don't have
kick you
to
out.
get stuck there and then, oh, I didn't get it finished, so I have to start over. It will record as far as you get, and then you can go back and do more later.
Good, good.
So, okay.
So as of our conversation today as well, and just for the rest of the people that are listening, so once you receive your roles and responsibilities, then you can be sworn in as a board and move forward, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
John, just curiously, when you do fill that out for the ministry, if you could copy the OAPSB, we want to make sure that our records are up to date as well with all your new board members and contact details.
Okay, I can send you that separate information because this is on a word, whatever they call it.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
However-
great. Because I was just actually going to have that go out tomorrow to get all the detachment boards ready, because I didn't know that they were sending it to all the detachment boards. So if they have already, we'll probably be putting out a request for all the information to make sure we have up-to-date membership for the new boards.
And I
Yeah.
think the other thing too is if anybody else on this meeting that has not received any
Yeah.
confirmation or email from the ministry, then please let us know and via email or put it in the chat which OPP detachment board you're going to be with or which board you're with currently, so that we can then let the ministry know they've missed folks and that we can get this out to you ASAP.
And just as a side note, they are contacting a single point of contact on these boards. So if you haven't received anything, it could be that you're not the single point contact. So I would say check with your administrators and or your chairs, who are most likely going to be the point of contact first. And if unanimously none of you have received anything and it's not in anybody's junk mail, then let us know.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, Lauren, Pam, Julie, your microphone is unmuted. Did you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to say hello, Mario, and it is a different Julie Johnston.
Oh, okay. I
All
just thought it was a coincidence. I saw that name and I thought, wow, great.
Yeah.
What are the
Yeah.
odds? You can just have that meeting now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I kind of panicked a little bit and looked at my calendar saying, am I supposed to be meeting Mario in Toronto? I'm in Windsor.
All right. Mario's iPad still remains unmuted. So Mario, I don't know if you have a question. You know what? And we'll move past Mario. If he has a question, he can also put it in the chat. Nobody else has their microphone unmuted, but does anybody else have a question? Or yes,
I think
George, go ahead.
George, yeah.
Thank you once again. So I want to make something very clear. So the board is still arm's length from council. Correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So that's why we need the insurance to cover the provincial appointees and or counselors or the community representatives, correct?
Or
Correct.
First Nations. Yep.
Okay. Now, my second question, ladies, is in reference to new elections. So as of April the 1st onward, so the previous chairs or the chairs that we have now under the old act, do we have to have a new election going forward after April 1st because of the new act?
Yes. I don't know, Pam, if you want to talk to this too, but just consider that as of April 1st, it's a brand new board, because it really is. Although I think for you, there's not a lot of change in structure. Like there's a little bit, but it's not a lot of change there. You do need to appoint all your officers based on the new act and the new board. Okay.
Now, if there's
So-
some folks have been talking also about the transition activities, and we have been recommending that if you have current members that are going to be falling off, but who have been pivotal in helping you get to this point, you may want to consider having them a committee of your new board, or even we'll call it a task force, if you will, a transition task force, so that they're able to provide you some history and some guidance. Just food for thought.
And my last question, so the code of conduct, that's provincially, or that's brought on by section 409, subsection 23 you mentioned, but bylaws and procedures will, for our board or on all boards, basically will continue. Is that correct?
You'll have to redo those as well, because a lot of the sections that they pertain to in the act will have changed. Pam has a document actually that she's going to post. We're going to post on the internal side of the website for everyone to see how this section in the PSA, what it is under the CSPA, so that you
Okay.
can make those adjustments in your policies as need be in your bylaws. And there are some new ones as well that you might need to include.
Thank you. Denise.
Yep.
Any other questions? got a little bit of dead air there. I don't know if anybody wants to unmute and just speak. George, you have another question?
Sure. I'm just looking at my notes. So as a
Yeah,
previous
go right
chair and
ahead.
vice chair, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. What I had found was there was a lack of communication between the county clerk, the CAO, and the mayor and councilors. And so with this information that's being brought on either by the ministry or the Ontario Association of Police Services Board, in our county, so we have a county clerk, just like everyone else. We also have a CAO, we have a mayor, we have a chair, we have a vice chair. And I have a sneaking suspicion when we meet this coming Wednesday, they have no idea what's coming down the pipes.
Actually, that's not the first time I've heard that. So I've actually been in conversation with a lot of clerks that are putting reports in front of council to explain to them. And this, I was actually speaking to one where there's 3 clerks that are all going to be have members sit on their OPP detachment board, working together to pull this report together to advise council, municipal council, of the changes coming and what their requirements are. One of the appointments, one that they understand that these costs would be split and shared. Any budgets from the OPP detachment boards would need to be shared across. So they are actually working with the clerks to put this in front of council so they do understand of the changes that are coming as of April 1st. So George, that is something that does need to be done, would be good to do, so that they are well aware of the changes. And they are big changes because they will have to converse with all the other municipalities and come into agreement, one, with the split out of the costs, right? Whether it's to Lauren's point, whether it's 50-50 or, you know, 33, whatever it is, based on population, based on whatever you decide to do. That's a discussion that they all need to come to the table with and have agreement on. And so they should be aware of their part in this.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we all understand also as board members and members here, is that there's another layer to this onion, which of course is the inspectorate. And so, I mean, we're all going to be on our good behavior, but if a complaint comes in, the board members have no idea. And I was talking to one board member and they looked at me as if I had, you know, 7 eyes and 2 horns. The bottom line is, if our board, Norfolk County, isn't aware of what's taking place and there is a complaint, then the left hand's not going to know what the right hand's doing. And if the CAO or the mayor and the clerk's department has no idea, you know, there's no 1-800 number line that they could call and say, what's the answer to the question? And we're going to look like a bunch of dodos.
Lisa, I don't know, you're on mute if you're.
Thank you. Sorry. We are going to be doing some training on those pieces. This is not, right now, we want to get everybody to April 1st and then the key pieces that they need to do. And we're going to be doing these sessions every week and focusing on kind of key pieces you need to know. With regards to any, you know, conduct complaints against your board members and what happens with those and where's the responsibility, and with regards to any complaint against a member of the OPP that were to come in, what you're supposed to do with those if they were to actually come to a member of the board. All those pieces we're going to be talking about in greater detail. We just don't want to overwhelm everybody with we just want to kind of do it in little bite-sized chunks. Let's get these pieces in place. And once that we're here, now we're going to start talking about the pieces you need to start writing, like a complaints policy on, and all those pieces. You have to have those policies. And we are going to have some examples that you can, from other boards that have put in place, that you can use to help you build your own if you don't have one.
No, and that's more than fair because, I mean, I've known from past experience when I'm on any board, I always ask for board of directors liability only because of a person doesn't want to be sued or doesn't want to be caught up in this web and start paying out deductibles and lawyers' fees. So I bring that up just for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything to that, Pam?
No, I was going to jump in and give you what the act says on complaints against board members, but like Lisa
Well,
said,
go ahead if you want, if people want to hear it, go ahead. I
No,
don't want to overwhelm, but if you think
it's
it-
very, I mean, with the IG, you mentioned the IG. So, I mean, the act
Mhm.
for board member conduct complaint. So if there's misconduct from a board member, the way that the act is worded is that if it is if you have a complaint against the chair of the board, that goes to the inspector general. That complaint goes out, and they actually have a portal that you're going to be able to submit that complaint into for the IG. If it is actually a board member, non-chair, then that goes, you have to have a process for managing that within your board, right? Within the board process. So anything non-chair is within your board. Now, if you don't think it's being handled correctly, those can go up to the IG and you can still report them on the portal. But ultimately, you will need to have a process for one, knowing that you have to go up to the IG if it's related to the chair, and then an internal process if it's related to board members. So that's how the act is worded for board member conduct complaints.
and
Okay,
if you
great, thank you.
if you think it's, and I'm just like thinking here right now, maybe it would be advantageous for us to hold a session at some point for municipal staff or others about like detachment boards and or even municipal boards on the other side in regards to the CSPA and the changes. It might be good for us to do one of these just for them for any questions they may have as well.
Yeah, Lisa, I think that would be a great idea. And the reason I say this is because what I've noticed with the deputy clerk and the clerk's office, they're overwhelmed. And I funnel information and emails to our board secretary, and it takes 3 or 4 days to get a response. So makes sense.
Okay. We'll put that on
Thank
our
you.
list. Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Nancy, it looks like you've unmuted.
I do. Thank you. I was just going to ask if there is going to be any training sessions for board secretaries, or if we just participate with the regular training sessions. And my second question is, for boards that haven't amalgamated with other municipalities, we've kind of very limited changes to our board. With the financing piece and the budget, we have typically had council come, or staff basically come and say, here's the budget that you have. Do you see any changes that you would like? We end that now, correct? So there's no, great, okay.
Yeah, the act is very clear that the OPP detachment board shall have a budget. So you have to put in what you believe your costs are to be able to manage for the year. So
Right.
remember, if there's a local action plan you're working on, right? Because you will have council, you will be meeting with the detachment commander, you will have to, review the local action plan when it comes to that point. So you need to determine your costs related to your board. And then you put those through to council. And
Okay.
actually, if it's one council. So actually you fall much like municipal boards now, actually. You put that budget through to council. They get to determine the timing of it. So whether you're putting that in August, September, and how you submit it to them, they'll say, we want it in an Excel format, or I worked for one municipality where we had an online system where, you were given a login and password and you put your budget in, right? So whatever the process is, they define, the timing they define, and they basically can say yay or nay to the amount. And if it's a nay, then you have an arbitration. In the act under section 70, it does clearly define that then you can go to arbitration as a part of that budget. Okay, so it is defined.
Just a
And
quick
we
think
did,
that's gonna
we
be one
did
of
do
the
a
biggest
session on
things.
that.
Yeah,
We did do a
quick
session
question.
on that in
We-
the fall,
yeah,
right? So
we
it's
did,
on our
and-
it's on our website, Nancy, on the internal side. There's what we talked about last fall on budgeting for boards. So it kind of gives you an idea of the things you could include in your budget. But we'll do it. We're going to do it again. Like, don't worry, we'll go through it again.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to look at it, it is there.
Well, I guess it's just more
Did you take the training? Did you, if you
I
did
did watch that. I guess it's more like convincing, like you say, counselors and stuff, that it's a new way to do things.
Yeah.
And that because we haven't changed drastically, then the old mindset will set in.
Correct.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the hard part.
But again, we're happy to, if you have a board meeting or even a planning discussion, I know those are we'll call it kind of difficult to organize without meeting quorum. But in the same respect, if you know, you have folks together, or you need us to send a message, or you need us to participate in even a board meeting before then to help explain the process, you know, we're open to do that. So you can contact us anytime.
Okay, thank you. Last question. The conference that you're having in June, do you see like a great benefit for board secretary to attend as opposed to like the chair and senior staff? Like I know
Yeah.
they're
So that
we've
was
got it
going to
very
answer that
interesting.
portion of your question too. So first of all, yes, board secretaries, admin, support staff, I think it's important for them to be either attending our training sessions and or attending our discussion groups. But Lisa, you want to talk to a little bit of the planning for the conference and what we've had discussed?
Well, I'm looking to see if we get enough admin staff that is interested in doing a training session. We might do one of our breakouts for just for that. And then we're also looking at maybe doing something online. I talked to someone today who said, you know, even doing a
Separate discussion group
webinar
or
would be helpful as well, right? So yeah, a separate discussion group for as well. So yes, I think it's always valuable because you're the constant that is there to support the board long term. So I do feel that it's just true, right? Everyone else moves around a lot more than say the members supporting it, right? So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
important that you're there for the continuity pieces and to help maybe provide context in relation to how it impacts your board from what's happened before, right? So I think it's important. I think as many people right now, as many people as you can send from your board should come just because of all the changes that are happening, right? It's a good time for
Right.
people to get extra. Because I'll be honest, this training that's roles and responsibilities training is very basic. It is not going to give you, like, you're not going to do that training and go, oh, now I know how to be a board member. It's just, it's not that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
But
not
in
there yet.
depth, it's
Not that
really
in depth.
not
Thank
in
you,
depth.
Pam. I'm struggling tonight with words. I'm very tired today. It's been a long one.
Okay.
all
Well,
right.
thank
Any
you very much.
answer all those questions for you, Nancy?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Looks like Lauren had his hand up. Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, getting back to George's with regards to what the CAA knows and what they don't know and so on. I can just speak for our neighboring municipality in Haldeman to George's, but the CAO actually directed the administrator, who happens to be the deputy clerk of the county, to attend the summit to gather information. So, and I know every police services board is going to be different, just how involved they are and so on. Also, we're fortunate in that whether it'll happen or not, but the deputy clerk, the current administrator of the police services board, is keen on staying on in that position with the new board. But of course, that will be up to the new makeup of the board. But I hope it takes place. And that's kind of a segue also to what Nancy brought up here too, and that is, will the administrators expected to be taking this training as well, the same training that the board takes, or is there something different for them?
So there is no legislative requirement for them to take the mandatory training, though we do
Okay.
recommend as a best practice that anybody that supports the board, it would be advantageous for them to have the mandatory roles and responsibility training as well. And one of the key pieces I think we should mention that we haven't mentioned yet, that is if you have a subcommittee of your board,
Yeah.
anyone who's on that subcommittee also has to take the mandatory training that the board has to take. It's not just the board members. So just keep that in mind if you are looking for a certain perspective for an issue you're having and you invite people into a subcommittee of the board for that purpose, they have to have an understanding of the board and how it operates and what your responsibilities are.
Okay. And what is the now you're having a lack of coming up with the right words. Well, the detachment commanders, how involved are they in this new board structure? I mean, before the summit, I spoke to detachment commander, spoke to a superintendent from the Western region, and they didn't know what was coming down. They knew no more than the rest of us knew, which was at the 35, maybe 50,000 foot level. Has that changed at all? Do you have any way of gauging that?
So I can advise that Dwight Peer, Dwight Thibb, sorry, not Dwight Peer. Dwight Peer was Central Region. Dwight Thibb, who is the chief of West Region, is in charge of the detachment commander. Basically, they're like a summit that they're having, and they have a full day that is completely on the CSPA, and that is April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So they are spending quite a bit of time on that. And we are presenting at that as well to give them the perspective of what to expect with regards to detachment boards moving forward. But they aren't really involved in it. That's the problem. Is that like they've been kind of told that this is not their responsibility. Because they aren't a member of the board, but they're recognizing now that they need to become to some degree involved and understand what their expectations are going to be on them from the detachment boards.
Yeah, because with the semantics of it all, you talk about counselors, municipal counselors, not knowing what's going on or not being involved with the police services board. But this now is an OPP detachment board.
That's right.
Correct.
That's right.
And I mean, in our training, when we first did it way back when, we said, have a meeting with your detachment commander, right? Talk to them about the reports they're going to be presenting, like if you're a multiple municipality board now, what does that look like? You know, have a meeting with them, and they'll be learned up by April the 5th, right? If it's 3rd, 4th, 5th. So they'll be learned up for you to start having those conversations with them. Document your local action plan. You know, how is that process going to work between yourselves and the board? And then also don't forget the safety and the community safety well-being plan. So that's not mentioned, but you know, you do have that piece in this whole puzzle that also, you know, you need to understand and be aware of when you're dealing with the local action plan, etc. So yes, it was one of our recommendations to have those conversations, because it is key to your OPP detachment board is the commander.
We had a good discussion today at the Zone 3 meeting. Sean Tout and retired Chief John Kane did a presentation at Zone 3 that I've actually asked them if they would maybe do a webinar, because I think what they provided was some really good information on how the OPP is planning to connect dots and have boards involved in some of the processes. And I thought it was very well done. I don't know, John, what you thought, but I thought they had really great information, and they put it in a really succinct way that I thought it would be beneficial to maybe have them do a webinar so that everyone would have access to that.
Yes, I think it was very beneficial today. It was very understandable. They're right to the point, and they even put their humor side into it as well, which is kind of enlightened thing. So it was a good session. Very good.
Okay, good.
Uh-oh, crickets. Any other questions, folks? Yeah, George, go ahead.
Sure. Just another question, and I think this is pretty well for everyone in the province of Ontario, for vice chairs and chairs and even members. A lot of members don't understand what the SIU is about, and I'm going to be very honest with you. As a chair and vice chair, we had two investigations, and of course, what I was told is silence is golden because of the investigation, and we left it at that. But the public itself, and there was a case locally here that I was getting phone calls left, right, and center. And unfortunately, I couldn't say much other than you have to wait till this report comes out, and we'll leave it at that. So to the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, is it clear to all chairs and vice chairs and even board members that when there is a special investigations, you know, with the OPP, that silence is golden? And is that available to all the boards? I just make that comment.
I think that's a good comment, Georgia. We will definitely, we did a session last year on communications and the importance of different types of communications at well, one of the conferences, but that's a good point. I think whether it has to be maybe it's just a webinar, like a small kind of give an overview of what the process is. And, even the detachment commander can't speak to those matters as well. It's not just the board, it's that it is now in the hands of SIU and no one speaks to that matter but SIU. But it also doesn't mean that you can't support your members in a different way, right? So they don't feel like they're just being, unfortunately in the past, some boards have said things negatively about members that has hurt maybe the relationship there. So just a way to be positive and support the membership while being silent from a public perspective. That's a good idea. We'll put something together on that too. Geez, you're giving us lots of work tonight, George.
I think what's important to understand is this. And what I've noticed in the last 4.5 years, and this is to everyone that's listening tonight, is we have a great group of individuals that are very intelligent and their hearts are in the right place. But when you're dealing with the public, and I mean the general public, they have no idea what the role of the Norfolk County Police Services Board are. They think that they can come up or ring my doorbell and say, oh, by the way, my son wants to get in to the OPP. Here's his resume. And I'm like, I beg your pardon? Like, they don't know. And it's a matter of educating. Or, that might happen municipally. I don't know. But under the OPP Section 10, up until now, I just couldn't understand how the general public honestly believes that we hire and fire the police, which we don't do any of the above. So again, it's just something that needs education, or a matter of educating.
If it's helpful, George, and thank you for that comment. I think we've been having some internal discussions at the OAPSB about the things that we need to do better from a branding perspective, and being able to share not only the importance of police service boards, but open up to the general public what they do and what they're responsible for as far as police governance in Ontario is concerned. So these are, maybe Lisa could talk a little bit about the fact that, by way of the association and the funding and the vision that they've had in the past, didn't necessarily align with the resources that were available. So Lisa, maybe I'll transition that to you.
Well, what Janine is so eloquently passing the buck for is that in the past, the OAPSB, and I have said this in a few Zoom meetings already, it hasn't really been a working association per se, right? It wasn't structured for it. The fee structure for boards, membership costs are not, they really aren't substantial enough to support what the OAPSB should be. You have the OACP, which is the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, and you have the Police Association of Ontario, that are both funded in a different way than the OAPSB is. And to be honest, because it wasn't a working association before, it wasn't something that boards were really focused on in their budgeting. And with detachment Section 10 boards, they actually didn't have to actually have a budget in the legislation, right? So these are areas where we need to start increasing the resourcing of the OAPSB to provide those supports to boards across the province, right? So we're trying to get some expertise, either on a lawyer when you have them on. What's the word I'm trying to say, people? Retainer. See, this is why there's three of us here. So my words.
We're all sharing a brain.
Yeah, we're all sharing a brain tonight. So we can have a lawyer on retainer, someone that can assist with bargaining, HR related matters, like all of those types of things, that we have resources that we can, when there's an issue in the public, we can go get a perspective or a legal opinion or an expert opinion that we can share, that this is the OAPSB's opinion on this matter. This is the stand that we are taking, so that there's consistency across the province on how an issue is being interpreted by lawyers that represent boards, not necessarily a lawyer that might be hired by your municipality that may not be an expert in that area and may have a different perspective on it, right? So it's a way of trying to elevate what we're able to provide to boards across the province. But you're absolutely right. And no disrespect to the people who are doing it before, because we're just trying to build now. We still are under resourced, quite honestly. We're working crazy hours. Pam's working her butt off as well.
Well, I actually was going to just also highlight the fact that Janine and I are actually covered under a grant or a transfer protocol with the province to facilitate this transition for CSP and the boards. So we're actually not really
Employees.
paid by the OAPSB. It's covered through an agreement with the province to help ramp up boards on the CSPA. So once, you know, that term of the agreement, the transfer agreement with the province ends, you know, we will transition out unless the OAPSB does get, you know, the funding or the availability to have staff on staff to do this type of thing, right? So just so that we're clear that that's the way that we're working right now for Janine and I.
And they're part-time. We
we're
only got enough money for them to be part-time.
Yeah.
So we are working on ways
part-time.
to part-time. Well, you're getting paid for part-time. Let's put it that way. We're working on ways to elevate what we can provide as an association. And I think really it was the position of the board before they hired me back in 2022 that they wanted a full-time executive director to start moving the organization in a different direction. And that's where we're trying to get to now. Yes, George.
So Lisa, if I could just add, so to have consistency and continuity, because from what I remember, and I've spoken to you in the past, so you've worked with the OPP, 30 years of service, I understand.
27, but
27.
Yeah.
So for us to have consistency and continuity, and I think I mean, it's paramount, because we can attend conferences, but what I've noticed with our board is, and I'll be very honest, our board has gone through 6 county clerks in the last 4.5 years. Okay. We have had a lot of change, and honestly speaking, if we were to have an audit, I'll guarantee you that they wouldn't even know where the files were or the documents. And one clerk to the next clerk was like, well, do you have your notes? Do you have this? Do you have that? Did you cross your T's? Did you dot your I's? And I'm shaking my head here and scratching it thinking, is this what's happening throughout the province?
I think that's, you know, a really, you know what, thanks for opening your kimono there, George, and showing us dirty laundry. I don't think that you're alone in any respect as far as that's concerned. And I think it's probably even more challenging on what we'll call the old OPP board structure in the past as well. Given that you don't have the same responsibilities as we'll call them municipal or regional police services, and their boards that are, you know, act as an employer, there was limited governance in many cases. You are likely I'll call more advisory than anything else. So let's not forget that the majority of folks that sit on those boards also change out, given the we'll call it the flavor of political elections. So as far as continuity is concerned, you know, we have to rely on a system and a structure, and many of you didn't have that. I think the new CSPA, we had discussions when Pam and I first started working with Lisa on, you know, what is the goal? What was the goal of this new legislation? And for all intents and purpose, I think everybody recognized that there was a lot of inconsistency and a lot of gaps when it came to governance of policing. And so the CSPA is one step forward in starting now to, we'll say, put some rigor in place with respect to boards, to greater define roles and responsibilities, and to really identify, we'll call it, I don't want to call it risk, but I do want to call it responsibilities and accountabilities as far as that's concerned. So to your point, you know, I think everyone's feeling a little bit of that. Like, why is there not a standard bylaw template for all boards, or why isn't there terms of reference that are standard for all boards and you just fill in the blanks of whatever applies. It's just, we'll call it, this is a part of organic growth. And I think, like I said, we're moving forward in the right direction. It's unfortunate that it's taken, 30 years to get here. Pam, I saw you had your hand up. Do you want to add?
Actually, just on that, one of the things that as OPP detachment boards now, you should all really make sure you have in place is an OPP detachment webpage, right? There are very certain things that you are required to post on the internet, as the minister puts it.
Yeah.
So that is a board requirement. So whether you're using a municipality's website, but you should all have one, and that it should all be linked with the municipalities that sit on that board. So that's really key. And the other thing too is a retention policy. So you spoke to, not knowing where things were held or what have you, but having very clearly now as an OPP detachment board, a retention policy and where those documents are going to be housed, right? So if you're a detachment board now, you have 4 municipalities sitting on that detachment board. You have your board administrator that will obviously have that, but knowing where they're housed, how the destruction policy is going to be for those, how that's going to work, where it's going to happen. So just in tune with, your whole document retention and consistency by having these procedures or bylaws in place, that's really going to help as you move into this new entity of an OPP detachment board.
Not only that, you also want to include how do you manage change, right? Specifically with change in regulations or change in other things that are going to require document changes. How are you going to manage change? How do you keep track of change?
And
So,
onboarding for your members.
Onboarding for members is another big one.
Yeah.
We have had a lot of response from existing board members saying that, when they were brand new to a police service board, it took them a year, sometimes almost 2, to kind of get an idea of what they were actually responsible for. So this mandatory training, even though in concept, I would say in concept was an attempt to do that. It might not meet the mark 100% today, but as Lisa said at the beginning of this, and it was echoed by the IG, that, this is a starting point, certainly not an ending point. April 1st is a place to start.
And we're getting way down the road, but one of the things about all that you're talking about, George, is a way to evaluate your board, right? So you put these policies in place and these procedures in place, and then you need to be assessing how well your board is following what you're putting in place, and then really evaluating, the operations of your board and if you're doing things the right way. So, but we're going to have a list of policies, and we're going to say, here's the things you really must have in place, and then help you with different ways you can look to evaluate your board after that. But that's down the road.
Yeah,
it's got lots of things to cover.
That's excellent. I think it's imperative. It's imperative because the transparency, the accountability, the public, educated or not, what they think and what it is might be 2 different things. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the board's reputation and the OPP, even though we're an oversight body, and I mean, we're very limited other than hiring the chief of police or our inspector and asking questions. We're very limited compared to the municipal forces.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay with that. But again, once, this inspectorate comes in, so we're an oversight body, then we have an oversight body above us. So, I mean, there's just another layer of the onion. And then I'm saying to myself, and I'm going to be honest, I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm okay with this. But when I look around the table, they're like, well, we'll just leave it up to the chair. And I'm thinking, no, if something goes wrong, we're all involved. We're a team.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure. And,
those are my
not
comments.
to blow your mind here, George, but, we are talking about related policies and document control and retention and all of the rest of that stuff. Well, when it comes right down to it, there's been a lot of discussion around municipal boards needing to have a strategic plan, and OPP with limited governance only need to have their local action plan and contribute to the local action plan. We're suggesting as a best practice that OPP detachment boards think about heading down the path of a strategic plan, only because you can then have, specific board operational objectives. And that's where you can really then hold yourself accountable.
Right.
right? And that whole idea of your effectiveness evaluation, you know, at the end of the year or end of a term or however you want to describe that, right? You can really start to see this is where we were, this is where we're going, and here's where this is how far we've got. So just food for thought for the future. I don't want to overwhelm anybody on the call though. These are, again, just so it's clear, OPP detachment boards do not need to have a strategic plan. Let me make sure everybody's clear on that. But as we look at, we'll call it best practice and the awesomeness of where we're going, that, you know, these are the topics that we're going to approach in the future.
And that's fair. And if I could just add one other thing, just for everyone that's listening in, and it's important, here in Norfolk County, to be the chair of the Police Services Board, there's a pay hike of $20 a month. And to be very honest with you, the role of chair as Police Services Board is a crucial one and takes a lot of time and effort. And it's not about the money, but what I want everyone to understand here is that if we have to be logical here, for those $20, is it really worth all these phone calls and the agendas and crossing your T's and dotting your I's? And if this is what's happening throughout the province, boy, we're in trouble. And I just put that out there because, I mean, we've got some good people, provincial appointees, we've got good councillors, we have good mayors on the board, we have good community individuals, but we have to look at the remuneration. And when we're saying, well, for an extra $20, if you're the chair, but if you want to be the vice chair for an extra $10, you have less duties. And that's what's out there. And I just want to put that out there to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that, George, for sure. Let's go back to questions though. You know, lots of folks listening here. No first-time caller, first-time contributor, but if anybody have a question that they'd like to either put in the chat or raise your hand and speak about. We have about 13 minutes left. I don't see anything in the chat anywhere, so I think we're still good there. And folks, please feel free if you have other things on the go or you think you've gotten your money's worth out of tonight's discussion and you want to drop off the call, you don't need to stay for the whole time. So we will be online until 7:30, but for anybody who feels that they're ready to go, like, feel free to log off. You're not being held hostage. Well, then again, maybe you are. Okay, we have some folks that are exiting the call here. Again, any other, Bill Gordon just made a suggestion here. Can you offer up a detachmentboard.com domain for member websites? That's a pretty good idea.
Lisa, did you just want to mention the logo?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Can we come back to that in a second, just so I can add to this comment?
Sure.
So the detachmentboard.com domain for websites is a really good idea. I think many zones and boards don't realize that on the OAPSB website, not necessarily for boards, but certainly for zones, there is a place and a bookmark there for you to be able to use that as a repository in the members portal. I think that hasn't been well understood, and we're likely going to be looking at some changes to the website. So stay tuned for that as well. But Bill, thank you for that suggestion. I noticed that you finally unmuted yourself. Did you want to add to that?
I've just been listening to all the great commentary and questions. It's great. I don't have a ton of input. Our 5 municipalities that are becoming the new detachment board for Southern Georgian Bay and Zone 3 have done well, actually two of our volunteers basically have done a tremendous amount of work building all the policies. I think they've actually over-engineered it, quite frankly, but we've got our budget in place, and we've got our call for applicants out there. We're meeting in a week and a half to vet them and appoint them. We feel like we're in a really good place, largely due to the heavy lifting of these two really capable former police folks that are on or doing the work for us. At least one of whom I hope is going to be appointed to our new detachment board. But anyway, my background, I'm the mayor of Midland. I'll be our member on our, from our municipality. My background's in law enforcement as well. I did 25 years, started with the OPP and then finished with Midland Police Service before it disbanded and went OPP, which liberated me for other opportunities. But long and
So
short of
safe
it,
to say you've been
I'm
retired
IT.
for more than a year. Sorry, Bill. Safe
Yeah.
to say you've been retired for more than a year, so you can sit on the board.
Yeah. So I've been, it's now whatever it is, I'll pushing 6 years. So at any rate, my other gig, you know, because being a mayor is a part-time job, certainly pays like one, is I work in IT. So I registered detachmentboard.com. I bought that domain, you know, for $15.
Yep.
And so I'm hosting the Southern Georgian Bay website, which, you know, is basically it's a skeleton. It's, you know, it's a landing page with one comment or one post on it. I'm hosting that as sgb.detachmentboard.com because I didn't want to hog that domain. I thought, you know, it was a greater good thing. Subdomains of detachmentboard.com, I can offer up to any other detachments that want to have that as their domain name. It doesn't mean I'm not volunteering to host and be your IT guy and manage your WordPress site or whatever you're going to use. That's what we're using. But I can offer up, you know, there's a thing called a DNS entry. You get your propeller head folks to contact me. But
Yep.
you know, that way we don't have to have all different versions of this. We can centralize everything as detachmentboard.com and just have different prefixes.
Yep, that's a super
So
cool idea.
if people are interested in that, it's a philosophy we took as our small municipal police service. I still host a service 6 years after disbandment called crimeplot.com, which offers free crime mapping to what was our member optic municipalities and cooperative. And there's still
Super
a few
cool.
services that use it. So long and short of it is I have this domain detachmentboard.com and I own it and control it. So I have the ability to redirect using something called DNS or domain name services, subdomains. So something.detachmentboard.com to your own, you know, servers, wherever you want your IT people to be to run your websites. And that way we can centralize the detachmentboard.com thing.
Well, I think if it's okay with you, Bill, we might decide to have some conversation with you offline on what that could look like. So if you're okay with us reaching out to you.
Absolutely. I just,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
I know there's a bunch of these and there'll be a whole bunch of people trying to figure out what to do, just rather than going madly
Well,
off their
and
own
there
direction.
are some just cool, honestly, some detachment boards actually have space on their website for their board information as well. So, I mean, there's a couple of different options that you can look at, and we made some recommendations also when we did the transition for your OPP detachment board training in November. But you know, but Lisa, Pam, I think this is worthy of a discussion outside of the forum here today.
Yeah, that's fine. And Bill, just the record, I did use Crime Plot through Optic when I worked for my police service. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I haven't done anything to it in years, but I was surprised people are still using it, but you know, I keep it alive. So
well versed in it for sure.
Yeah, and Pam's another IT person, so you guys can have a whole other discussion without the rest of us.
Okay. Anyway, we're all in
right.
this together, and it sounds like you know, some people on the call, their municipalities are maybe not quite ready for this. Other ones maybe are 100% ready or 95% ready, which is good. And I'm glad this organization is hosting these and giving us all a chance to learn from each other and be the repository for, you know, best practices and, you know, policy documents and information about insurance. And this has been of value to me, just sitting in and lurking, as it were. So.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
So Lisa, I think just on the heels of that, on the whole sharing thing, what I learned today. So
a while back there was someone who was looking at using the OPP logo for their board, and they're not allowed to use the OPP logo for a board. You have to get approval to use that logo. It's copyrighted. So what the OPP is doing though is working on a logo for OPP detachment boards to use. So it will be everyone can use the same logo and just change the name for your detachment board. So kind of like what you're saying, Bill, you'll get consistency from, you know, how each website might look and the identity for a detachment board. So that's what they're working on right now. They didn't have quite the approval to show it today, but it is on, it's very close to being ready to share with people.
So good, we'll have a domain and we'll have a logo. What else do OPP detachment boards need? Any other questions while we're on that topic? I know we had some late joiners there, so you know, I don't want to point anybody out, but I'm going to. We have Larry who joined us a little bit late today, and Larry, you may have missed a good portion of the conversation. So do you have any questions that, regardless of what we've been talking about, you'd like to toss out? I'm going to take that as a no.
There is the recording afterwards, so you'll get
Yeah,
caught.
absolutely. Like we said, these calls as well as the content will be recorded and posted on the website. It is 7:25. We have about 5 minutes left. So again, if we've answered all your questions, you don't need to stay on the call. We're going to be here till 7:30 anyway.
So there is one that just popped up. Does there need to be a separate domain than the municipality's website? There doesn't need to be. I think what needs to happen is you do need to have an OPP detachment website or a page on
Or-
something that
yeah.
others can link to. I mean, I think this is just a way of keeping domain names consistent. So if they're typing in Northumberland, you know, it's going to be Northumberland at detachment. So it doesn't matter what you utilize, just as long as you have a page that the public can get to and they recognize that it is an OPP detachment board website.
We did cover this in some of the transition training as well. So if you go back and look at the recommendations we made there, as part of your discussions with your municipalities, IT was one of the areas that we did talk about, and whether one municipality wants to host it and the rest of the municipalities that are covered in the detachment area decide that they're just going to have hot links on their website. You know, there's lots of different ways around this. We're just there's simpler ways, there's cost-effective ways, and there are things that maybe in thinking ahead are better ideas than others, but certainly there isn't one solution fits all here.
I'm not techie, but I will be reaching out to you, Bill, because I don't understand exactly what you're saying. Pam will fill me in later, but I think it makes a lot of sense that they would all have the same name, right? All basically the same
domain,
language. Yeah, like the language for that. So I think that's something we definitely should look into.
And I mean, I have like 20 questions that I have for Bill, basically on the administration, the administrators, access, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand the DNS side of things and uptime, and then the cost related to that, right? Because this could be a budget item for boards. So just looking at it, coming up with that. So we will probably connect with you offline to work through all of those things and put it out there to boards if they want to go down this road. It's an absolutely viable option.
All right, and just, I'll put it on the record, and there's a bunch of witnesses. Like I said, I bought the domain for, I don't know, it was 15 or 20 bucks, right? When I'm done, like if I don't get reelected or, you know, I get hit by a bus or whatever, I'll make sure that there's a mechanism to transfer ownership of this domain to OAPSB, for example, so you guys can, you know, own it and control it. I'm happy to help out in the initial stages, but you know, this is just, will be my gift to whatever, because nobody registered it yet. So just, we didn't want someone to swap to, you know, to take it up. So if any of you guys visit detachmentboard.com on your device, right now it just instantly goes to the sgb.detachmentboard.com because there's nothing else to see. But when there would be others, I would anticipate a landing page with a list of some kind. You know,
yeah,
eventually it'll be probably searchable, and you can just pick, oh, I want this detachment board, and you know, off you go, and it'll be whatever your prefix is, .detachmentboard.com. That's kind of what we could do, but you know,
I like
early
that.
stages. So
yeah, there's lots of room for idea sharing there for sure. But Bill, my
we
bigger,
can do it offline because I know propeller heads start stuff.
yeah, exactly. We're all gonna smoke a little here. But you know, thank you for your gracious gift. Are you sure you don't want any royalties on that? Nancy,
No,
thanks
no,
for
I'm good.
participating.
No, it's just like crime plot. It's just the greater good thing. It's what the principles of the Ontario Provincial Information Technology Cooperative was built on, and I still embody that, and we still do that in our municipality, and we try and share with our municipal partners too. So
That's
it's
super
like
cool.
we're just helping each other out. One hand washes the other, right? So
That's it. Karma will treat you well, my friend.
yeah.
Like I said, folks, you don't need to stay on till the end. We got about 2 minutes till the end though. So if your questions have been answered and you feel like getting back 2 minutes of your evening, feel free to log off. We will let you know when things have been posted. Bye, George.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, George.
Okay, John, Lauren.
Bye, John.
We've had a few folks on the call that were very quiet. So if you, as folks are falling off, if you would rather ask a question to just a few as opposed to the many, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any remaining questions you might have. Looks like we're getting some folks to log off here. I'm actually going to stop the recording now. I think that's fair.